What if everything you had lost was actually positioning you for something greater? What if the tragedy of your past, the circumstances you never chose, and the identity you were forced to hide, were all threads in a tapestry of divine purpose you could not yet see? This is the story of Esther, an orphaned Jewish girl who became queen of the most powerful empire on earth, a woman who risked execution to save her people, and a hero who discovered that sometimes God places us exactly where we need to be for such a time as this. It is a story where God's name is never mentioned, yet his fingerprints are on every page. The Persian Empire stretched across the ancient world like a colossus. From the shores of India to the borders of Ethiopia, 127 provinces bowed before the throne of King Xerxes. His palace in Susa glittered with gold and marble. His armies numbered in the millions. His word was law, and his whim was fate. In the third year of his reign, Xerxes held a feast to display his glory. For 180 days, he paraded his wealth before the nobles, princes, and military commanders of his realm. When that celebration ended, he opened the palace gates to the common people of Susa for 7 more days of feasting. Wine flowed without restriction. The gardens sparkled with white and blue linens, silver rings, marble pillars, and couches of gold and silver. On the 7th day, when the king's heart was merry with wine, he summoned Queen Vashti to appear before his guests wearing her royal crown. He wanted to display her beauty as he had displayed his treasures, to parade her before drunken men as another ornament of his power. Vashti refused. Her defiance sent shockwaves through the palace. The king's own wife had publicly humiliated him. His advisors warned that her rebellion would inspire women throughout the empire to disobey their husbands. Acting on their counsel, Xerxes issued a decree that could never be revoked. Vashti was banished from his presence forever. A new queen must be found. And so began a search that would reach into every corner of the empire, gathering beautiful young virgins to compete for a crown. Among those taken to the palace was a Jewish orphan named Hadassah. She had lost everything. Her parents had died when she was young. She had been raised in exile, far from the homeland her people remembered with longing. Her only family was her cousin Mordecai, who had adopted her as his own daughter and given her a Persian name to help her survive in a foreign land. Esther. The name meant star, and perhaps Mordecai sensed that this quiet, beautiful girl was destined to shine in ways neither of them could imagine. When Esther was taken to the king's palace, Mordecai gave her careful instructions. Do not reveal your people or your kindred. In an empire where Jews were scattered exiles, where prejudice could turn deadly without warning, Esther's identity became her secret. She entered the palace as a Persian maiden, her heritage hidden behind a gentle smile and graceful obedience. For 12 months, each young woman underwent beauty treatments before her night with the king. Oils, perfumes, cosmetics, an entire year of preparation for a single evening that would determine her fate. When her turn came, each woman could request whatever she wanted to take with her, from the harem to the king's chambers. Esther asked for nothing except what Haggai, the keeper of the women, advised. She did not demand luxury or adornment. She trusted the wisdom of those who knew the king's preferences better than she did. And in this small act of humility, she revealed the character that would later save a nation. When Esther was brought to King Xerxes, he loved her more than all the other women. She won grace and favor in his sight. He set the royal crown on her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. A Jewish orphan now sat on the throne of the greatest empire in the world. But the story was only beginning. Mordecai continued to sit at the king's gate, the place where official business was conducted. He could not enter the palace to see his adopted daughter, but he remained close, watching, waiting, praying for her safety. One day, Mordecai overheard two of the king's eunuchs plotting assassination. Bigthan and Teresh, guardians of the threshold, spoke in hushed tones of murdering Xerxes. Mordecai immediately sent word to Esther, and Esther informed the king, giving credit to her cousin. An investigation confirmed the plot. The conspirators were hanged. The incident was recorded in the official chronicles of the kingdom. But Mordecai received no reward, no recognition, no honor. His name was simply written in a book and forgotten, or so it seemed. After these events, King Xerxes elevated a man named Haman the Agagite to the highest position in the empire. All the royal officials at the king's gate were commanded to kneel and pay honor to Haman. Everyone obeyed, everyone except Mordecai. Day after day, Mordecai refused to bow. When the other officials asked why he disobeyed the king's command, he told them he was a Jew. Perhaps the command to bow violated his conscience. Perhaps ancient enmity between the Jews and the Agagites, descendants of Israel's old enemies, burned in his blood. Whatever the reason, Mordecai would not bend his knee to Haman. When Haman learned of this defiance, rage consumed him. But killing Mordecai alone seemed too small a revenge. When he discovered that Mordecai was a Jew, Haman conceived a plan of monstrous scope. He would destroy not just one man, but an entire people. Haman approached the king with poisoned words. There is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the peoples in all the provinces of your kingdom. Their laws are different from those of every other people, and they do not keep the king's laws, so that it is not to the king's profit to tolerate them. If it please the king, let it be decreed that they be destroyed, and I will pay 10,000 talents of silver into the king's treasuries. 10,000 talents, an astronomical sum, perhaps 2/3 of the empire's annual revenue. Haman was willing to pay a fortune to fund genocide. The king removed his signet ring and gave it to Haman. Keep the silver, and do with the people as it seems good to you. With those casual words, Xerxes signed the death warrant of an entire nation. Haman cast lots, called Purim, to determine the date of destruction. The lot fell on the 13th day of the 12th month. Decrees were written, sealed with the king's ring, and sent by courier to every province. On the appointed day, all Jews, young and old, women and children, were to be killed, and their possessions plundered. The couriers went out in haste. The decree was published in Susa. The king and Haman sat down to drink while the city was thrown into confusion. When Mordecai learned what had happened, he tore his clothes, put on sackcloth and ashes, and went into the midst of the city, wailing with a loud and bitter cry. Throughout the provinces, Jews fasted and wept and mourned. The date of their annihilation had been set in stone. Esther heard that Mordecai was in mourning, but did not know why. She sent garments for him to wear, but he refused them. Then she sent a trusted servant to find out what was wrong. Mordecai told him everything. He gave the servant a copy of the decree and charged him to show it to Esther, urging her to go to the king and plead for her people. By the way, if you find any of these videos interesting or enjoyable, please consider subscribing. These take a long time to make, and it really helps out. Esther's response revealed the danger she faced. All the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces know that if any man or woman goes to the king inside the inner court without being called, there is but one law: to be put to death, except the one to whom the king holds out the golden scepter so that he may live. And I have not been called to come in to the king these 30 days. The king had not summoned her in a month. She had no guarantee of welcome. To approach him uninvited was to risk instant execution. Esther was queen, but even queens could die for breaking protocol. Mordecai's reply cut through her fear with the sharp edge of truth. Do not think to yourself that in the king's palace you will escape any more than all the other Jews. For if you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will rise for the Jews from another place. But you and your father's house will perish. Then came the words that have echoed through centuries, words that transformed a frightened queen into a courageous hero. And who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this? For such a time as this. Every loss Esther had suffered, every circumstance she had not chosen, every hidden part of her identity had led to this moment. She was not queen by accident. She was positioned by providence. Esther's fear gave way to faith. Her response was the response of someone who had counted the cost and chosen obedience over safety. Go, gather all the Jews to be found in Susa, and hold a fast on my behalf. And do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my young women will also fast. Then I will go to the king, though it is against the law. And then 3 words that still inspire courage in the face of impossible odds. If I perish, I perish. On the 3rd day, Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the king's palace. Her heart must have pounded as she waited. Would the king extend his scepter, or would the guards seize her for execution? When the king saw Queen Esther standing in the court, she won favor in his sight, and he held out to her the golden scepter. Esther approached and touched the tip of the scepter. "What is it, Queen Esther?" the king asked. "What is your request? It shall be given you, even to the half of my kingdom." But Esther did not blurt out her plea. With wisdom and patience, she set a different course. "If it please the king, let the king and Haman come today to a feast that I have prepared for the king." The king agreed. He and Haman attended Esther's banquet. At the feast, Xerxes again asked what she desired. Again, Esther delayed. "Let the king and Haman come tomorrow to the feast that I will prepare for them, and tomorrow I will do as the king has said." Haman left the banquet in high spirits. He had been singularly honored by the queen herself. But his joy turned to rage when he passed Mordecai at the gate, and the Jew still refused to bow. Haman went home and boasted to his wife and friends about his wealth, his sons, and his favor with the king and queen. "Yet all this means nothing to me," he said, "so long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate." His wife Zeresh and his friends gave him counsel. "Let a gallows 50 cubits high be made, and in the morning tell the king to have Mordecai hanged upon it. Then go joyfully with the king to the feast." The idea pleased Haman, and he had the gallows made. 75 feet high, it would tower over Susa, a public monument to what happened to those who defied Haman the Agagite. That night, the king could not sleep. This seemingly small detail was the hinge upon which the entire story turned. Xerxes ordered the book of memorable deeds to be read to him. And as the scribes read through the chronicles, they came to the account of how Mordecai had uncovered the assassination plot and saved the king's life. "What honor or distinction has been bestowed on Mordecai for this?" the king asked. "Nothing has been done for him," his servants replied. At that very moment, Haman entered the outer court. He had come early to ask permission to hang Mordecai on the gallows he had built. "Who is in the court?" the king asked. "Haman," his servants answered. "Let him come in," the king commanded. Haman entered, ready to request Mordecai's death. But before he could speak, the king asked him a question. "What should be done to the man whom the king delights to honor?" Haman's heart swelled with pride. Surely the king meant him. Who else could it be? He answered with elaborate detail. "Let royal robes be brought, which the king has worn, and a horse that the king has ridden, and a royal crown. Let one of the king's most noble officials array the man in the robes, and lead him on the horse through the square of the city, proclaiming, 'Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delights to honor.'" The king smiled. "Hurry, take the robes and the horse, as you have said, and do so to Mordecai the Jew, who sits at the king's gate. Leave out nothing that you have mentioned." The color must have drained from Haman's face. With trembling hands, he arrayed his enemy in royal robes. With bitter lips, he proclaimed honor to the man he had planned to hang. When it was over, Haman hurried home, his head covered in shame. His wife and advisors saw the truth clearly. "If Mordecai, before whom you have begun to fall, is of the Jewish people, you will not overcome him, but will surely fall before him." While they were yet talking, the king's eunuchs arrived to bring Haman to Esther's second banquet. At the feast, the king again asked Esther what she desired. This time she did not delay. "If I have found favor in your sight, O king, and if it please the king, let my life be granted me for my wish, and my people for my request. For we have been sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be killed, and to be annihilated." The king was stunned. Who is he, and where is he, who has dared to do this? Esther pointed at the man across the table. A foe and enemy, this wicked Haman. The king rose in fury and stormed into the garden. Haman, seeing that his fate was sealed, threw himself on Esther's couch to beg for mercy. When Xerxes returned and saw Haman falling on the couch where the queen reclined, his rage exploded. "Will he even assault the queen in my presence, in my own house?" The servants covered Haman's face, marking him for death. One of them mentioned the gallows, 75 feet high, that Haman had prepared for Mordecai. "Hang him on that," the king commanded. So they hanged Haman on the gallows he had prepared for Mordecai. The man who had plotted genocide died on the instrument of death he had built for another. But the danger remained. The decree against the Jews was still in effect, sealed with the king's ring, unchangeable by Persian law. Esther again approached the king, falling at his feet, weeping and pleading for her people. The king could not revoke his own decree, but he gave Esther and Mordecai permission to write a new decree in his name. The second decree gave the Jews the right to assemble and defend themselves, to destroy any armed force that attacked them. On the 13th day of the 12th month, the day appointed for destruction, the Jews instead gained victory over their enemies. Throughout the empire, those who had planned to murder them were themselves destroyed. In Susa, Haman's 10 sons were killed and hanged on the gallows. What had been decreed as a day of destruction became a day of triumph. And so the Jews established the festival of Purim to commemorate their deliverance, a celebration that continues to this day. Mordecai was elevated to second in rank to King Xerxes. The orphan girl's cousin, who had once sat at the gate, now wielded authority over all the provinces. And Esther, the hidden Jew, the reluctant queen, became forever known as the woman who saved her people. The book of Esther is unique in Scripture. God's name is never mentioned. There are no miracles, no prophets, no angels. Yet the entire story pulses with divine providence. The timing is too perfect. The coincidences are too precise. The reversals are too complete to be anything but the hand of God working behind the scenes. A sleepless night, an unread record, a gallows built for one man becoming the instrument of another's death. These are not accidents. They are the fingerprints of a God who is always at work, even when we cannot see him. The story of Esther points forward to another who would save his people from destruction. Like Esther, Jesus left his royal position to identify with those who were condemned. Like Esther, he risked everything to intercede for his people. Like Esther, he said, "If I perish, I perish," and walked willingly toward death so that others might live. But Jesus did more than risk his life. He gave it. The decree of death that hung over humanity could not be revoked. The wages of sin is death, and that law could not be changed. So Jesus took the sentence upon himself. He hung on the gallows that should have been ours. And because he died, we live. Because he was condemned, we are delivered. Because he faced judgment alone, we will never face it at all. Haman thought he had won when the decree was signed. Satan thought he had won when Jesus was crucified. But God specializes in reversals. The gallows becomes deliverance. The cross becomes salvation. The day appointed for destruction becomes the day of ultimate victory. Perhaps you wonder where God is in your story. Perhaps you face circumstances that seem beyond hope, enemies who seem unstoppable, decrees that cannot be reversed. Perhaps you have been waiting for God to act, and the heavens seem silent. Look at Esther. God's name was never spoken, but God's hand was never absent. He was working in palace politics, in sleepless nights, in forgotten records, in precise timing. He is working in your story too, even when you cannot see it. And perhaps, like Esther, you have been placed where you are for such a time as this. Your circumstances are not accidents. Your position is not coincidence. God has a purpose for you, right where you are, right in this moment. The question is not whether God has a plan. The question is whether you will trust him enough to act. If I perish, I perish. That is the prayer of someone who has surrendered outcomes to God. That is the faith of someone who values obedience over safety. That is the courage that changes history. May it be yours. If you have not subscribed yet, please do not forget to do so. It really helps us continue providing you with amazing videos like this.